Welcome to the 18th video in this tutorial series on building an e-commerce website using React, Redux, GraphQL, and Firebase. In today's video, we're going to be working with Redux Persist to save the data in our Redux store to our local storage and then rehydrate the state of our application whenever we reload or re-render the application. Before we get started, I want to explain the reason why we need to persist the state that we have in our Redux store. Now, what that means is that we want to remember important bits of information about our users so that if they navigate away and then return to our site, regardless if it's immediately or if they return after a couple of days or even a week, we can restore the same user experience that they had the moment that they left our site. So a great example of that would be our cart. As you know, we're currently not persisting our Redux store, but you also know that we are currently storing the user's cart items in our store. So as you can see as an example, what I've done here is I've added a few items to my cart. If I was to reload the page, you're going to see that the cart is going to appear empty. Now we're going to be using the local storage API to persist our Redux store and fire off actions to rehydrate the state whenever our application reloads or re-renders. My official channel can be found at youtube.com/simpletut. Please do check it out, not only to find my other videos, but also the official playlist for this series, which I will be linking to in the description of this video. And this is just a great place for you to find previous and upcoming videos of this series in one place. I also want to let you guys know that there is an official GitHub repository for this project. At the end of each of these tutorials, I'm creating pull requests and I'm merging my code into this repository. So if you want to compare your code with mine, then this is a great place to be. But as always, please support the channel. Please fork the project. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And don't forget to turn on those notifications. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do is head over to our terminal because we're going to need to install another Npm dependency. So within my terminal, within the command line, I'm going to install that. So it's npm install Redux Persist. Okay. Once you've typed that in, just click on return and it's going to go ahead and install that for you. It may take a few seconds, but once that's done, restart the application. Now that we have installed Redux Persist as a dependency in the project, we're ready to configure it within the application. And the first thing we need to do is persist our store. So to do that, let's come back over to our text editor and we need to go into the file that we are creating and exporting our store. So I'm doing that in my Redux folder in the create_store.js file. And as you can see here, I'm creating my store. I'm also exporting that as default. Now I need to create a persisted version of my store. So to do that, at the top of the file, I'm going to import something from Redux Persist, which is Persist store. And what I'll do is underneath my store, I'm going to export const. I'm going to create a persister. And all I'm going to do is call persist store and pass it my store. And then I'm actually going to need both of these. I'm going to need both my store and my persister. So rather than exporting the store by default, I'm going to now export an object with both the store and the persister. The next thing that we need to do is configure our root reducer. So to do that, I'm going to come into my root reducer.js file that's in the Redux folder. And we need to import two new things. The first thing is Persist Reducer. We're going to import that from Redux Persist. So we'll import Persist Reducer. And the second is the storage that we want to use. So I'm going to be using something from Redux Persist in the lib folder and storage. Now I want to note here that I'm going to be using local storage, but Redux Persist also supports session storage. But again, in this tutorial, we're using local storage. The next thing that I'm going to change is, instead of exporting the root reducer by default from this file, I'm going to export the root reducer as a const. So I'm going to call that root reducer. And at the bottom of the file, I'm going to export by default my Persist Reducer, which I'll call as a function. And this expects two things. The first thing that it expects is a configuration object. So I'm going to call that config storage. And this object requires three things. The first is a key. I'm going to be giving this the key of root because this is my root reducer. The second is the storage that we want to use. And again, I'm using local storage. I imported that already up here at the top of the file. And the third thing that we need to configure here is our whitelist array. And this whitelist array is all of the pieces of state, our Redux store, that we want to persist. And I can already tell you, the only one we want to persist currently is our cart data. The reason for that is because we're already persisting our user through our authentication, and we're also handling our product data within our routes. So the only thing that we want to currently persist is our cart data. So I'm going to be passing that as an element into the whitelist array. And then all I need to do is pass my configuration object into Persist Reducer. And the second thing is the root reducer itself. Now that we've configured our root reducer and our store, we're ready to come over to the root of our application, which is index.js, and make some changes to how our application renders. So the first thing that we need to change is how we import our store. We not only need our store, but we also need our persister. And again, if I check our create store.js, you'll see that again, we made this change so that we're now exporting both our store and our persister at the same time. And we also need to import our persist gate. Okay, our persist gate, and we need to import that from Redux Persist, but a specific integration path. Now the reason that I'm importing it from this integration path is because Redux is not only used in React applications, Redux is also used in a number of other libraries, including Electron, React Native. So because of that, Redux Persist supports a number of other integrations more than just React itself. So we need to import it from this specific path. Now, all that we have to do now is wrap our application in our persist gate. And we also need to pass persist gate our persister, which again, we're importing here at the top of the file. Now, by doing this, we're giving our app access to inherit both the store, but also the persist flow itself. And we're also giving our application access to fire off actions to rehydrate the state whenever our application reloads or re-renders. We're now ready to test this out in the browser. So let's add a few items to our cart. We can adjust the quantity, and let's try reloading the page. So as you can see, when I reload the application, I am persisting my cart. I can even go into a new tab. Let's close the old one, and let's manually enter the URL, and you'll see that the items are still there in my cart. So I am successfully persisting the state in my cart. And that brings us to the end of this video tutorial. But before we sign off, I just want to encourage you guys to check out the official GitHub repository for this project. I'll be posting a direct link in the description of this video. And as always, at the end of this video tutorial, I've created a pull request, and I will be merging that into the repository. I also want to ask you guys to check out my official YouTube channel. You can find that at youtube.com/simpletut, not only to check out my other videos, but also the official playlist for this series. And again, you'll be able to find a direct link to that in the description of this video. But most importantly, I just want to ask you guys to like, comment, and subscribe. Don't forget to start my GitHub project. And as always, remember to hit the bell and turn on those notifications. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to working with you again in the next video.